Yo, what is up, everyone? Back here with another video. In today's video, we're going to be going through the the loyal three, I guess is what they're called. Okidogi, Pheasantipiti, and Monkey Dory. So these three Pokemon are the new legendaries besides Ogerpon that were added. I'm going to be covering Ogerpon in a separate video, but I did want to cover these three because I thought they were really interesting. To be fair, I do think there's one that does stand out from the rest, but I just wanted to cover all their individual toolkits and kind of talk about what I think their applications are, what I think are the best ways to use them, and so on. So basically, with these three legendaries, they all have this original ability called Toxic Chain, which gives you a 30% chance of badly poisoning on any move. It's a pretty sick ability. It actually has a lot of applications, I think. It's just that, obviously some use it better than others. And then also they have hidden abilities as well, which are pretty, like, important, except for, Monkey Dory and Pheasantipiti kind of got a bad one, but I do want to spend some time talking about Okidogi. So first, we'll start out with Okidogi. So why do I think Okidogi is the best of the three? Because I do think it's the best of three. So first, let's take a look at its stat distribution. So stat distribution is not only pretty good, but also it allows it to kind of be a lot more offensive than like the other two are, right? Like I do think Monkey Dory, for example, like does have that offensive capability, but its stats are less good. Whereas like Okidogi has a more even stat spread to where it's like actually a potential threat in the metagame, right? Okidogi also has access to this ability called Guard Dog, which while at first look you might be like, okay, but like isn't Toxic Chain better? Guard Dog is actually really sick. Like you can't be intimidated, right? And if you do get intimidated, you get +1 attack and you can't be forced to switch out. So why is that a big deal? So if you run a bulk up set on Okidogi, right? And you're running it with screens or something, it's kind of insane because you can't get phased out, right? And also you can't be intimidated, right? So basically you have unstoppable setup that you can just kind of spam in front of the opponent and they have to react to fast enough to kind of stop you from getting what you want done. Realistically too, like because they can't phase you out, it makes it like very hard to stop this. So you're gonna have to brute force and kind of like knock it out, right? Now, obviously, there are ways you can force to switch out Yawn Pressure from, Pokemon like Gastrodon. You have, obviously super effective psychic moves, maybe something coming from like a Cresselia, right? Or just like, if there's like Psy Spam or something. But generally, like Okidogi does kind of have a lot of capabilities. And with like something like a Terra Water, you could even consider something like a Terra Fire or a different type, right? Like you can get a lot of defensive capabilities out of it. Now, I do think as well that like the defense stat is pretty insane. So like if you just consider like, let's just say we give it like a default spread, right? Um, its attack stat is pretty insane after one bulk up, right? So like even after one bulk up, this thing will be hitting like a truck. Its special defense is really good. It lends itself to screens. Its speed tier is not bad either. So if you have that kind of support, it could be really good as well. So I think Okidogi is definitely one of those Pokemon that has a lot of potential. Even if you ran something like an Assault Vest set on it, right? And you ran like 4 attacks, it has a pretty wide move pool, right? So you could run something like Knockoff, right? You could run a you could run like other coverage moves as high horsepower, ice punch. It just has a lot of cool things you can do that like takes advantage of its high stats. So it's definitely a Pokemon that I would expect to see around. Out of all three of them, honestly, I'd probably say this one has the most competitive viability. Then the next Pokemon I want to talk about is Pheasantipiti. So for Pheasantipiti, right, it's a really interesting Pokemon because I feel like they kind of did it dirty on the stat distribution, but it still has like some potential. So unfortunately, its hidden ability Technician really isn't that relevant. Like it doesn't really do that much for it. Toxic Chain is probably your best bet. People bring up like how you can like, oh, Toxic Chain, like Dazzling Gleam, stuff like that. Problem is his special defense is pretty weak, right? So, or his special attack is pretty weak, so it's not exactly hitting hard. The nice thing about Pheasantipiti is its bulk, so I could see it even being like a really good supportive option. So maybe you do run it, like something like Bold, right? But you do get the extra bulk out of it. So maybe kind of keeping it around just to be annoying for other teams. And then maybe having a more defensive Terra on it could have some usage, right? I do think that like the spread Dazzling Gleam is cool. The problem is again, its stats, right, are just a little underwhelming. So that's going to be a bit of an issue for it. That being said, Cresselia is good and it has like a 75, 75 special attack stat. So it's not like the worst thing ever. As well too, it does get some interesting like setup moves. It gets Calm Mind, right? It gets Nasty Plot. It also gets Tailwind, Taunt, Toxic. Like it gets a lot of cool things it can take advantage of. So to me, like what I'd say is probably the most interesting application of it would be as like a kind of supportive, maybe like toxic spammer basically with like its spread moves, right? So if you were launching like out Dazzling Gleams, right, as you're clicking Roost and Tailwind, maybe you have like a Psychic Seed or something next to an Indeedee or like another Pokemon that can like give it bulk. That could potentially be like really annoying for opponents to break through because you could just kind of stall them out, right? So I could see something maybe like that being an application of it. Of course, as always, right, like it is one of those Pokemon that is really hurt by its stats, so you got to kind of hope that like you can find a way to compensate for it. But it's really interesting because I feel like in Scarlet and Violet they gave some Pokemon with like insane stat distributions, like different kits that are like pretty broken, and then they also make Pokemon like Pheasantipede, which are like pretty screwed over by their stat investments, right? So it's really interesting the contrast between the Pokemon, right? Or even comparing Okidogi to Pheasantipede, right? Then we have Monkey Dory. So Monkey Dory is probably the most middle ground one of the three. Okidogi being the most viable, Pheasantipede probably being the least viable. And then you have Monkey Dory. So Monkey Dory is really interesting. Its speed stats kind of like neat. It like outspeeds, obviously base 100s, which at least is like necessary, I think, to be a decent enough special attacker. The problem is like something like Flutter will still outspeed it. With Flutter being so common, obviously that can create some issues for it, right? That being said, it does get Toxic Chain as well. Frisk is not a good ability, so I would not expect to see that in competitive play, especially considering that competitive play is open sheet. It gets this moveset of Psychic, Nasty Plot, hold on. Nasty Plot, Sludge Bomb, and then you can run like Protect, right? So you have two checks when you click Sludge Bomb. You can either get the badly poison or you can get the regular poison. Probably something like a Sash. It also gets like moves like Fake Out, which is kind of cool. So that's like a cool option for it as well if you wanted to do that and not lean into the Nasty Plot set. It also gets Parting Shot as well. So Parting Shot's kind of like a cool pivoting tool. The problem is it just really suffers with its overall bulk, right? Kind of similar to that. Even if you were to say, let's say we put an AV on it, right? Just to kind of like, I guess, theory it out. Assault Vest, right? So even if we were to give it an AV, so it could run its like 2 stabs and then Fake Out and then 1 other coverage, right? Its bulk isn't super phenomenal, right? So even if you were to go like, let's say you invested enough speed to creep like Adamant Urshi, and then you gave it like some bulk on the defensive side, like it's still not the greatest, right? And then you're not like investing in your offense, which is kind of bad. So it has like some issues, right? It does get Grass Knot at least, which is a nice like secondary option, especially to pressure something like Hands if it goes for a Terra Water. But yeah, like it has some issues, right? I think that in general, like it definitely is a little underpowered. I could see it maybe running like a Terra. What Terra would you even want? Probably, maybe even Fairy might not be terrible. You could get away with like Water, maybe. Water's like the most neutral Terra out there. So there's like a couple Terras you could go for. I will say though, probably like out of all the Pokemon, right? Like, Okidogi is definitely the one I'd be most worried about. Or like not worried about, but like I'd want to like see the most in competitive play. So like, yeah, that's kind of it for like all 3 of them. I just wanted to kind of highlight them in this video because I thought that they were really incredibly interesting. And I wanted to just kind of go over my thoughts on them because I think the DLC is definitely really cool because it added a ton of stuff. Obviously in the next video, I want to go over Ogerpon individually because it has multiple different forms, right? That kind of make them individually strong. And then I wanted to go over the returning Pokemon as well, the new kits and stuff that were given out. So we're going to be doing that. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think about the Loyal 3. I think, Okidogi is the best of the 3, but let me know which one you're most excited to use. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.